I'm going to tell you all about our speaker, I hope. Dr. Clint Waltz joined the University of Georgia Turfgrass team in 2001 after finishing his studies at Clemson University with a BS, MS, and PhD in horticulture and turfgrass. As a turfgrass specialist of the UGA Griffin campus, he has program leadership responsibilities evaluating how various turfgrass species, easy for somebody else to say, responds to the environmental stresses of the southeastern U.S. As an author, he publishes in scientific journals, trade magazines, newspapers, and newsletters, and even writes articles for magazines like Southern Living. He makes presentations to sports film management, site production specialists, golf course professionals, turfgrass pros, county extension agents, and homeowner groups like us. So, and I think he also does some podcasts. So,
We've done.
So please join me in welcoming Dr. Clint Waltz.
Thank you. You did very good. So I got to give it to Deborah. Apparently they emailed me and asked for a bio and whatever. And here lately I've just been going 40 miles an hour in 60 different directions. So I probably missed the email, which is not highly professional, but that's just the way it goes. So she came up with that off the internet. And most of it's accurate on things. So, but thank you. Happy to be here. I always enjoy coming to Noonan. Reason for that is, well, one, downtown to me is just extremely charming. Number two, former colleague Dr. Tim Booyer lives here. I try to catch up with him when I can. Unfortunately, didn't catch him this time. So if any of y'all know Tim, think the world of him and what he's been for us in the turf industry through the years. And the other is, I grew up reading Louis Grizzard. Right down the road, right? Kind of thing. So getting over here and getting close back to the world of Lewis is always, to me, just kind of a charming thing to do on it. So when I've been here before, there's always been somebody that kind of says they knew him back whenever or knew his mother or whatever. I'm always kind of interested in hearing those stories. So if anybody catches me afterwards, I'm always up for a Louis Grizzard story, okay? The other is, before we get going too much, I want to introduce somebody. He started with us 1 week ago today, July 1. Dr. Ben Pritchard in the back of the room. Say hello, Ben. So, Ben is a new assistant professor. He's our new turfgrass weed specialist, scientist. So he came to us from the University of Tennessee. He did all of his work at Tennessee. So we're really excited to have Ben. Looking forward to a great career out of him. And before you know it, he'll be the one standing up here in front of y'all answering weed questions, not me, on things. And I'll be happy to relegate some of that. But the reason y'all came, let's talk about grass a little bit, okay? Perfect, thank y'all on it. I'm going to show you a little bit of data here. The next few slides are going to look very similar. But what I do is every morning I go on to www.georgiaweather.net. Okay, georgiaweather.net, spell out Georgia. And you can pull up, find the closest weather station. I think we got 90 weather stations scattered across the state. Find the one closest to you. Where's that, Stephanie?
Rootville or Griffin. Depending on which side you're on, Rootville or Griffin.
Rootville or Griffin. So these are off the Griffin campus. You could do this wherever, but Griffin is somewhere between Valdosta and LJ and Columbus and Savannah, okay? I'm not doing this for 90 of them, okay? So I got to pick one and just call it somewhat representative. So what I do is I wind up bringing down the daily high, the daily low, the 4-inch soil temperature for the previous day, and the rainfall totals. So just to keep an idea of where we are kind of climatic-wise and how that may be affecting the way we're growing grass at certain times, okay? So the purple line up there is, excuse me, is 2025. And I always give a little bit of context of where we were the previous years. Thing I've learned about weather is everybody's going to tell you what they think it is. Nobody's interested in actual data until you show it to them. Oh gosh, it's a hot summer. Well, actually it hadn't been, We've only had 7 days where it's been over 90 degrees. We've only had one day that was over 95 so far this year. So, you know, it may feel hot today, but relatively it hasn't been so much. And the other is, as more I've looked at these things through the years, look at July right there. Boy, 1 year from the next in July just isn't any different. Now, the purple dot, you can't see it because it's hidden, that's only 6 days worth of data. Whereas all the others are how many days worth of data in July? 31, right? That's how averages work on things. For those of you that aren't math majors, we'll talk about that later, okay? On things. So what we'll see here, though, is back in May, things slowed down a little bit. We were warming up, grasses got going pretty good, and all of a sudden in May, they kind of slowed up a little bit. And I got a reason for some of that here in a minute, and I'll show you why. But keep May in mind on the purple dot as we kind of move forward. All right, so this is our daily minimum temperatures. So this is the low temperature. Does the low temperature always happen at night? Doesn't have to. It could be, but that's the daily low temperature, the average for that. And now granted, right here, still we see our purple one kind of a little on the low side. How many days of average is that? 6. So we've got plenty of time for that to come on up. And again, you look at, it's interesting that July, how much, you know, over the last, they just stay packed on each other. Julys don't change. It's hot, okay, on that one. But April, we were kind of warming up at nighttime, and then we kind of cooled off a little bit. But look at this next one. This is 4-inch soil temperatures, okay? That's where our roots and our grass are. And that's what really drives a lot of the way we see grass grow, is those soil temperatures, especially in the spring for our warm season grasses. Look what happened here. May, we were running a little, you know, wasn't cool, and it was really the end of May where it kind of bumped up above the 2023 kind of period in there. But we're warm, we cooled off. June, we stayed cool. All right, so why did our soil temperatures stay cool? Anybody have an idea? Rain. That's right. So far, it's kind of a tale of 2 quarters as far as it goes this year when it comes to rainfall. January, February, March, first quarter, we were kind of low. But boy, once we got into spring, look at April. Look at April right there, above the previous 3 years. May, this is Griffin, over 8 inches of rain in Griffin. Water takes a tremendous amount of energy to warm it up. So wet soils are slow to warm up. So what were those 4-inch soil temperatures? Do I need to go backwards? Run a little bit cooler in there when we were wetter, right? So daytime temperatures are fairly normal to average, but those soil temperatures were slow. And as a result, grasses kind of came out, they greened up, but then they didn't really grow an awful lot in May and early June. Latter part of June, they started to take off a little bit for us, and they've really started going pretty good for us here lately on it. So again, I look at these on a daily basis, and it kind of helps me explain what I'm seeing, and it helps me whenever I'm working with homeowners, golf course superintendents, agents, of what's going on, why is it behaving and like this or what have you on things. So that's where we are. I would think that if July is normal, have no indication that it won't be, we'll be back good and warm, and grass will be growing fine, or warm season grasses will be growing fine. Speaking of warm season grasses, how many of y'all are in here master gardeners? There's a few of them, so you've probably heard me before. Turfgrass scientists are not creative people, right? Case in point, grasses that grow during the warm times of the year, we call them warm season grasses. Grasses that grow during the cool time of the year, we call them real creative, aren't we? Right? Okay. So for those of us in Georgia, warm season grasses are primary ones we deal with in in-lawns: Bermuda grass, centipede grass, St. Augustine, and zoysia grass. Those are our primary warm season grasses. There's some secondary ones out there. Bahia grass, anybody familiar with Bahia grass? It's flowering right now. You can mow it on Monday, and you got that little black forked seed head about knee high come about Wednesday, right? That's Bahia grass. Light green, open canopy density, not particularly attractive. And nobody really in the state of Georgia plants that as a lawn grass. It's used a good bit as a lawn grass in Florida, but by and large, we don't. I always have some folks ask about buffalo grass. Somebody's interested in native grass Okay, buffalo grass, is it native to the North America? Yes, it is. Is it native to the southeastern part of the North America? No, it is not. So when you hear native and folks are interested in native, first question you ask is native to where? Okay? So I've had many of folks say, I'd like a buffalo grass, I understand it's native. Well, it is. If you live in South Dakota, it's native. If you live in Georgia, not so much. Okay? Can I grow buffalo grass in Georgia? I can. But what's going to happen in about 3 to 4 years, it's going to get hot, it's going to get humid, it's going to get disease, it's going to open up, it's going to have weeds, and it's going to die. If you can get 3 to 4 years out of buffalo grass in the southeastern United States, you've done well. Okay? Carpet grass is another one. Now, there may be some folks that are, oh yeah, I remember when I used to wind up seeing carpet grass on bags of grass seed. And you did. Back whenever we had seed producers, centipede seed producers, they couldn't selectively kill carpet grass out of centipede grass in the sod production or seed production fields. So they harvested it all, and they called it exactly what it was, centipede and carpet grass mix. They can label it as long as there's some truth in advertising there on the thing. But we don't have that anymore. So anybody that's doing seed have done a pretty good job of cleaning up their fields. They don't have carpet grass. Every now and then I'll have somebody call and ask me about buying carpet grass. One, it's not in production from a sod standpoint, and I can't find anybody. I had a hint that somebody in Louisiana was growing it for seed, but I haven't been able to confirm that either. So carpet grass seed not out there. And then seashore paspalum, it's one we work with in Griffin, but we don't grow it here in this part. It is a warm season grass. Cool season species, tall fescue, and that's really about it. Okay, there is one exception up here, Kentucky bluegrass. We do have a sod producer in the state now that is growing Kentucky bluegrass sod, and he's about 20 minutes from here, NG Turf. They're the only one that's growing Kentucky bluegrass sod in the state. So some things there are gonna have to change. So as they increase acreage, adoption of Kentucky bluegrass comes on. It may get its way over to the primary, but right now I consider Kentucky bluegrass. But there's a lot of tall fescue, and we're going to talk about tall fescue specifically in a minute because of this. Matter of fact, we're going to talk about it now. Okay? It's a matter of where we are. I'm going to try to catch you today with where we are on things to be considered or considering now in your lawns, and then as we move in the middle, latter part of August or 1st of September, things to kind of be thinking about then. But right now, if you have a tall fescue lawn, you're probably starting to experience what I refer to as the summer swoon. Okay? Tall fescue is a cool season species. Griffin, Georgia is the southernmost area that tall fescue is reasonably adapted. Anything below here, it just really isn't well adapted to. Coweta County, pretty much right on that lower boundary on it. So much further south than here, it's just too warm most of the year. But can we do it? We can periodically, okay? It doesn't handle heat particularly well. Actually, for a cool season grasses, it does reasonably well, but it starts to thin out, it opens up, and the canopy starts to look kind of ratty this time of year. And that's a fancy scientific word, ratty, okay? On the thing. But that's a heat stress survival or physiological stress mechanism or survival mechanism. As it starts to shed those leaves, it's reducing the amount of energy it has to support those leaves. It's kind of keeping its energy back down towards the crown, waiting for environmental conditions to become favorable for growth. And that's going to happen somewhere right around about mid-September. Why do I say mid-September? Well, for this part of the state, mid-September is when our nighttime lows are consistently below 65 degrees. Okay, when we start getting those nighttime temperatures 60, 65, 63, 58, we're moving into the right environmental conditions for tall fescue. The soil temperatures start to come back down. If you go back and look at some of those charts that I gave you, that's when it is, but it's typically right around September 15th. So right now, first part of July, right, today's the what, 7th, 8th? So we're in the first week of July. Tall fescue's got to hang on for another what, month and a half, 2 months? So, you know, it's got to do everything it can to make sure it survives. So it's going to drop its leaves, it's going to thin out, it's going to open up, and it's going to have as much reserved back towards the crown of the plant such that it can survive and be there come September when those soil temperatures change, when those nighttime temperatures change. So, in any case, when the canopy opens up, opportunity for light to get down to the soil surface. Light gets down to the soil surface, we start to germinate weed seed. So it's not uncommon to see our tall fescue lawns start to get a little on the weedy side July, August, September. Very normal because it doesn't have the competitive advantage of an active growth and all that foliage up there shading the root system or the soil surface. Brown patch, it's a disease. It's a fungal disease. Hot, humid, Anybody want to take a guess what the humidity and the temperature are likely to be come about 10 o'clock tonight? 75 degrees and about 80% humidity sound okay to y'all? Am I off base? It's starting to get right about then, right? Yeah, right for disease. So you're at that point where the disease has hit it, the grass is slowing down, it's more susceptible, and as a result, we see more disease hit at this time of year. Very common out there on it. So things you can do, this is to mitigate disease, this is to reduce the impact of it, this isn't to stop it altogether, but one is minimize your irrigation and nitrogen fertilization, okay? Our fungal diseases need about 12 hours of free water to infect. So if you go out and irrigate, okay, get home from work, 5, 6 o'clock, let me go out and run my irrigation system, 6 o'clock at night. Okay, 6 o'clock tomorrow morning, we still have dew on the ground. So we wet it up at 6, got 6 a.m., 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. is how many hours? 12, and the dew is going to probably burn off when? 10, 11, yeah. So 6 to 10 is another 4. So we're looking at about 16 hours of free water. That fungus is going, thank you, sir. May I have another, okay? You've made it really happy. So the things you need to do there that you can control is when you irrigate. So irrigate later or early in the morning, okay? Not when you get home out there. So minimize your irrigation, irrigate to the right times, and trying to stimulate that grass with a little nitrogen fertilization, you're going to stimulate the disease as much as anything else. This is another one I see in a lot of landscapes with tall fescue is that they're back amongst trees, there's no air movement, and those canopies don't have an opportunity to dry out. And when that leaf gets wet, it stays wet, and we wind up getting disease. So air movement or air drainage is important. So anything you can do to open it up and get some air drainage in with those. And then consider a fungicide program. Now fungicides, we'll talk a little bit about those later, but in this case here with tall fescue, a fungicide program, 2 possible sprays, maybe 3, helps limp us through and get into September when environmental conditions are favorable for that grass to begin growing. So we'll talk a little bit more about what fungicides are, but if you've got a tall fescue lawn, you're wanting to hold on to it, lose as little grass as possible, you might want to consider employing a fertilizer program. So there's an old adage out there. That's an Alabama lawnmower on it. If you grow grass, you mow grass. So things that are happening this time of year, with Ben in the room, I should have said it was a Tennessee lawnmower kind of thing. But he's new enough yet. I'm not sure I can truly pick on him yet, kind of thing. But if you grow grass, you mow grass. So this time of year, you're mowing grass. So things to think about when it comes to that is maintaining a 1/3 mowing rule. So never take off more than 1/3 of the leaf surface whenever you do mow. And I'm trying to think on it. I did, okay. Trying to think whether I wound up putting the next slide in here, and I did. So these are your mowing heights or suggested mowing heights for warm season grasses in the state of Georgia, home lawns. Bermuda grass, zoysia grass, inch, 1.5 inches. Okay? Inch, 1.5 inches for Bermuda grass and zoysia. Centipede, 1.5 to 2. Okay? St. Augustine and tall fescue, 2.5 to 3. And we can bring those up a little bit as we start to move in the summer, or if you're in shady conditions, move them to the upper end of the range. But that's where they should be. Now, I also just deceived y'all. Did y'all pick up my deception? My master gardener's here to know this one, right? Because you've heard me before. But y'all pick up my deception? Where am I taking my pointer up here? What are the roots doing as that grass is getting taller? They're getting longer. So the key here is soil volume. The more soil volume my roots have to pull water and nutrients from, the better my grass will survive dry periods, hot periods, stress periods, okay? So these, instead of me making 5 different slides up there for each one of these grass species, y'all listen to me. When I say an inch, inch and a half for Bermuda grass, that's to optimize canopy density and rooting depth. So when I say inch, inch and a half on a home lawn for Bermuda grass or zoysia grass, I'm trying to push those roots down there as deep as I can to get as much soil volume explored for water and nutrients, okay? Let's think of it like this. If I have a root, it's at 3 inches, and I have a water molecule at 4 inches. Is that water molecule available or unavailable? Unavailable, right? Same thing, if I have a root at 3 inches and a nitrogen molecule at 4 inches, is that nitrogen available or unavailable? Unavailable. So we want to grow roots as deep as we can to pull water from as great a depths as we can to make it through, you know, a 14-day, 17-day dry period, okay? Or whenever it does kind of have an opportunity to take up nutrients, you're there for it. You get your roots down there as deep as you can, okay? Anybody familiar with robotic mowers? I don't have a picture of one in here, but I want to show you a little bit of data. We've been doing some work in the past. You got you one? No, I know what they are. You know what they are? Okay. We've been doing some work with some robotic mowers the last few years, and of course a lot of things is about labor savings and time and da-da-da-da-da. I want to know what it actually does to the grass. So what's it do to the turf canopy? And some of the work we've done on Bermuda grass, we've actually seen CM as conventional mowing. So this is kind of that 1/3 mowing rule. Let it grow up and cut it down. Let it grow up and cut it down once a week type of thing, okay? That 1/3 mowing rule is conventional. RM, robotic mowing, I'm a turf scientist, so y'all see the creativity in this here on it? But what we see is we actually see an increase in root dry weight. We see an increase in canopy density. I'm only going to show you one of these data slides. So we actually see a benefit to where robotic mowers are going out 3 times a week and just taking the tips off, not letting it grow up and cutting it down, up and down. We're just taking tips, because any mowing is a stress. And anything we can do to reduce the stress, we're going to allocate resources elsewhere in the plant. So we're seeing increase in canopy density, meaning more plants per unit area. We're seeing greater roots and root mass that can take up water and nutrients and make it from one stress event to the next. So we're seeing a benefit to these robotic mowers that are mowing on a more regular and routine basis, as opposed to mow it Friday afternoon, next Friday afternoon, mow it, you know, this up and down type of thing on it, okay? But things that are out there. So we're mowing. Next thing we're probably doing, we haven't been doing a whole lot of it because we got rain in May and June, right? July's so far kind of turning off a little on the dry side, but we got opportunity. But we may irrigate. So the next thing we may do is irrigate. So how much, and folks ask, how much do we grow? Well, regardless of the turf species, we want to wet to about a 6 or 8 inch depth. And that's generally going to get us about an inch to inch and a half of water, okay? And that should supplement rainfall. So if you get a 1/2 inch of rainfall, how much irrigation that week should we apply? A 1/2 inch. Very good. I see my math major here. So on that one, I got it. She did the math addition there real quick. I liked it on it. So warm season grasses during the warm season, May to September is when we go to irrigate. Cool season grasses throughout the year. And I told you a while ago when it comes to tall fescue, you want to limit your irrigation. You can't wind up stop irrigating. You dry up tall fescue, you will lose it, but you don't want to over irrigate it. You'd much rather kind of under irrigate than over irrigate, typically with tall fescue on it, okay? But you're going to need to do it year round. Inch to inch and a half a week. Inch and a half would be more sandy soils. So for this part of the state, more of our Piedmont soils, you're probably shooting for somewhere right around an inch of water a week is where we need to be, okay, on those. And then again, the sandy soils right here. Again, unless some of y'all live down near the river, 3/2, where's my math major? 3/2 is equal to inch and a half on things. So that's where we are. The other is if you're going to irrigate, let's make sure it's getting the grass right there. I've tried, no matter how much water I put on either asphalt or concrete, I tried both. I'm a scientist. We're going to wind up looking at all kinds. We even threw some fertilizer out there on that. I haven't been able to grow any more concrete or asphalt with as much water as you want to put on it. So if we're going to do this, let's get it on the grass, okay? On things. All right, the other thing we may want to do this time of year, and we hadn't gotten past it yet, is plant or establish new grass. So some of you may be in here thinking, all right, I'm looking to wind up reestablishing my lawn. Am I too late? You're not too late. You're in a good time for it. The window hasn't closed for warm season grasses. So what kind of things do we need to do, whether we're going to sod it or seed it, things we want to consider. One is till it deep as possible, especially when it comes to tall fescue. Now, it's too early to seed tall fescue. So if we're going to do tall fescue, right now the thing is be patient. Get ready, be prepared, but we want to be dropping seed this part of the state somewhere right around about middle of September, okay? So if you're going to seed or sod tall fescue, cool season grass, right? We're going to wait till September when those environmental conditions are a little bit more favorable for that grass to survive. So tall fescue, same things go here, we just got to wait and be patient. One is seed bed prep. And it always kind of boggles my mind a little bit. We talk to gardeners, you ask them, how do you plant a plant? And they'll give you all kinds of things of what we need to do to plant. If you're a vegetable gardener, we're going to go out and we'll till the soil, we got raised beds, we go on up adding the amendment this, I mean, we got black cow and what all else up here kind of thing. We're trying to make that a really good soil to grow our vegetables in. Or how do we plant a tree? Twice as big around as the root ball, twice as deep, we go back in, da, da, da. How do we grow grass? Or how do we plant grass? And we'll give you another secret. This is how you earn a degree at the University of Georgia in turfgrass management. This is, you have to know how to plant sod. You know what the secret is?
Green side up.
Green side up. That's right. So if you got that, you're well on your way to a BS degree at the University of Georgia. So you try brown side up first and see how it went? And didn't go so good, did it? On the thing. So whether you're going to sod, whether you're going to seed bed prep or site prep is huge. We do a trial at the University of Georgia on tall fescue, and it's called an NTEP, or National Turfgrass Evaluation Trial. We've got last year we did it in October, it was 124 cultivars, I think, in it. We seed it one time and we evaluate those grasses for 6 years, okay? So we seed it one time, we don't reseed it. It's sitting out on a hill, full sun, out in front of God and everybody, okay? And we hold those plots for 6 years. I'll have landscapers say, how do you do that? And my answer has always been, is that we actually till the soil. We do the right site prep on it. We have to get it to be there for 6 years. I remind them all that running a rock hound across it is not considered tilling, okay? They're just scratching the upper quarter inch. That's not tilling. So if we're going to do the right things to plant our rose bush or our daylilies or our tomatoes, let's do the same thing for turf. Till it as deep as possible. How about? 1's better than none, 2 inches is better than 1 inch, 3 inches is better than 2 inches, 4 inches is better than 3. Y'all got it? On the thing. So till as deep as possible. Get that soil worked up. Then you come back over, you roll it, you firm it up. I don't want it hardened up. I want it firmed up. A good rule of thumb, and this is just all this is, a good rule of thumb, so, you know, highly scientific here, right? Rule of thumb, if you can walk across an area and barely leave footprints, it's probably ready to wind up being sodded or seeded into. You till it, you roll it, smooth it up, firm it up just a little bit, point where you can walk across it, just barely leave footprints, and you're probably in pretty good shape. If you want to take the next step and go out there and do soil amendments and add some compost back to it, we've done work in the past with the soil cubed material where we've actually incorporated this into the upper 4 inches. This works really well. There's another one from the Georgia Soil Company. They've changed names since we did work with them, but that one worked well too. And that's what you see in this study here. So this study here was where we were incorporating different amounts of compost into the soil and then laying grasses across them. And we're looking at rooting characteristics and that kind of thing with it. So not many folks will do this for their soil or for their lawn, but we did see some benefit of somewhere right around 500 to 750 pounds per 1,000 square foot incorporated into the upper 4 inches. Not just scattered across the top, but actually tilled into the soil. We saw improved rooting, water efficiencies, things like that with it, okay? So can we see? Probe, punch in. Next thing I come out, I'm pulling out pink styrofoam. Right? Sheeting of a house. Or I've come down and hit it about that far below and it kind of hits something solid and we dig a little bit more and next thing you know it's a 2x4. You know, and contractors have buried stuff around and they wonder why the grass isn't growing. There's no root system there. There's nothing there to hold it. So, you know, some of these site prep things have you got to do out there on them. That was a backyard on one. That's where they washed out the concrete truck. And I'm going to go back and say they were supposed to wind up cleaning that up. My guess is the lead contractor was checking on another house and then they just kind of got it somewhat graded off and good enough and we'll throw grass on it. How do we grow white grass?
Green side up.
Green side up, you know, right there and let it go. And then here in about 2 years they're asking me why it's dying in the backyard. You know, on some of that. I'm not sure what the plant was planning on watching, but we got the remote control right there ready for it. I did zoom in on that one there. So, you know, the debris that's left in some of these things and it's out there is ridiculous sometimes. You wouldn't do that for a tree. You wouldn't do that for your daylilies or, you know, what's your favorite plant?
Mine?
Yes.
I love hibiscus.
You wouldn't do that for your hibiscus, would you? But by gosh, we'll do it for a lawn kind of thing on it. So, the other is if you have an irrigation, if you're going to establish you need irrigation, whether it's going to be from seed or sod, okay? You need to be able to irrigate. If you don't have an irrigation system, that's okay. You just need to be willing and able to drag a hose and get it out there. This was a lawn right here that we're at, really nice zoysia grass lawn. Homeowner wanted, redone the landscape. Contractor put it in, grass started to die. Of course, they blame the sod producer. Somebody's got to be at fault for dead grass, right? So I get a call and they said it was in great shape when it left here. I'm not sure what's going on, but I don't think this is a grass issue. The sod producer asked me. I said, well, it turns out I'm up in Atlanta. I was able to swing by and look at it because I was already in the area. I swing by, sodded September 19th on it. Funky little spots here, funky little spot there. I pulled it up. It was actually raining that day. Pulled grass up and this is in the back of my Explorer. That's just dry as a bone right there. And of course I asked, they sent me the picture, I said, is it being irrigated? And they said, oh yeah, irrigation comes up 3 times a day. 3 times a day? Really? I don't think so. You know, kind of thing on it. And let me go backwards. So 3 times a day, but what happened was, in that case right there, they sodded over the top of the irrigation heads. So the heads couldn't come up and turn. Irrigation head right there. There's an irrigation head right there. So they were popping up, but they weren't going anywhere. So this is one of those things that you kind of say, do you really have to say that? But when you wind up sodding grass, step back and take 10 or 15 minutes and watch the irrigation run. Okay, if you have an in-ground irrigation system, watch it run. Make sure that head comes up and turns like it's supposed to. If it comes up and it's stuck and it's just watering right here, there's an awful lot of grass that's not getting irrigated, right? So watch the heads, make sure they turn, make sure they're actually coming up, they're popping up like they're supposed to. 10 to 15 minutes saves you an awful lot of right here thinking about having to replace grass. Was this the sod producer's fault? Is it the landscaper's fault? Maybe, you know. Should they have known better than to sod over the top of the irrigation heads and not cut them out and make sure they were coming up and down? I don't get involved in those until somebody asks. But yeah, okay? With that one. This one here, that was another one. That was a municipality that seeded or did that one. They knew they didn't have irrigation, so the attitude was hit and hope. And turns out down slope right down here. Water runs downhill, collects and that kind of thing. It stayed green. Upslope up there, not so much on some of that one. I kind of wish, this is one I wish they had an extra quarter pallet, because I just wonder how far up that telephone pole they'd have gone. If given the opportunity, how far would they have gone up that telephone pole? And I can promise you, you can't get a mower on that to mow it, on that one. So it's like, okay, that one's cute. And then this is one right here. Sometimes any architects in the room, I'm sorry, out there, landscape architect or, okay. Well, if you did, you wouldn't admit to it now, would you? Yeah, kind of thing on it. But, you know, these kind of things out there, I understand where it kind of looks good, it kind of tapers in, but these are really maintenance nightmares on some of these kind of things out there on them. Matter of fact, this whole area in here, as far as those get a mower on it, you got a signpost here, you got a light post here. This little spot out here, you can't get a mower. Wheels wouldn't stay on that if you had to. You know, so while I understand the grass would be a nice accent on some things, and I'm a grass guy, I want to see more grass planted. That's probably not a spot that's well adapted or suited for turf in some of these areas. So some of these things you kind of got to think of. This one was cute. This was on a sports field. See the soccer field back behind it? We had a few thin spots, so let's throw some stand and just chunks of grass in the middle of it. And that's another hit and hope. It's even worse because not only we go throw the grass out there, we're not going to irrigate it, and then, hey, let's turn loose about 600 8-year-olds on it and see where it goes. But we'll only do that one day a week. That's just on Saturdays. At least that's what your soccer association says. What about practice Monday, Tuesday, Thursday? Oh, practice doesn't count. Do these children show up without feet and cleats during practice on them out there? So out there. Seams, this is another good one right here. Get towards the end of the pallet and we just kind of keep throwing things out on it. This was always one of my favorite ones, where I asked for any of our recovering architects, do we have any recovering lawyers in the room? Because this was a liquor store owned by a lawyer, and obviously he was having a hard time with clients that month. Collections weren't good. He was shorted himself about a pallet and a half on it. And I got to watch that one. It took him about 3 years before it finally grew in. He got there, but by gosh, it took him a little while on that one. And I got to give him, somebody did a really good job of at least making the shortage look good on that one, right? So retail seed mixes. This is one I like to do too. So if you go down to Home Depot or Lowe's, Walmart, your big box retails, you're going to find seed. We did a study a few years back for a big company, and it's actually a big retail company, and they were kind of curious as some of the manufacturers and suppliers of what they were actually getting. So we put this out, we seeded it. If I remember correctly, there's 5 replications. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, there's 5 replications, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 seed mixes in here. One there. Can you see the squares? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on it. So there's 5 different seed mixes. These were all retail mixes on them. April looked great. Cool season grasses, mixes right off the shelf, big box retail. Essentially a month later, irrigated. All it's done is gotten a little bit warmer. That's all it's really done is got a little bit warmer. I will have some astronomer or whatnot in the class, and so, you know, the day length starts to get a little bit longer in there too between April and May. Yeah, okay, photo period gets a little longer too with it. But look what we started doing. We started losing these. And a couple of their executives, I said, so let me ask you, are y'all selling a lawn or y'all selling a product? And they said, well, we think we're selling a lawn. We'll look and see what's in some of these bags sometimes. Because this was predominantly annual ryegrass. So as it got warmer, the annual ryegrass died out. I think this one had some tall fescue. This one was a combination of some tall fescue and Kentucky bluegrass, and I believe that one may have had some tall fescue or whatnot in it too. But these two were predominantly annual ryegrass. And when it starts to get warm, annual ryegrass will die for us here in the state of Georgia fairly quickly on these. So temporary cover, if you need something temporary, it dies out and it'll do fine. But if you're selling lawns, and that's what you're trying to do is sell lawns as seed, be careful and look on those seed bags and see what you're actually getting in some of them. I get folks ask all the time about fine fescue because they have a shady area in fine fescue. Will it germinate in the state of Georgia? It will. Will it grow in the state of Georgia? Between the months of September and April, it will. Between April and September, it will die on you. So the only place I really recommend to find fescues is either extremely protected spots or the North Georgia mountains. Other than that, so if you look on the back and it's got chewing's fescue, sheep's fescue, red's fescue in it, and it's a shade blend or shade mixture, yeah, those grasses will do fine in the shade. But even in the shade in the state of Georgia, when it's hot, and the grasses won't grow too well. Hydromoose, this was a cute one out there. Just plug your hose into the end of it and spray your yard and sidewalk and everything else, and it'll grow on it. And this is on the inside. See, that's hydromoose right there, so I'm not making this. This is rendition tall fescue, divine perennial ryegrass, radar chewing's fescue, Kelly Kentucky bluegrass. All cool season grasses, but yet they're being sold and you can find them on the shelf right now, middle of July in the state of Georgia. That picture may have been taken either in Macon or Savannah. Okay? Well below the area where even tall fescue would be adapted out there. So why do we fertilize turf? Well, let me go back on that one. So color, we're in a quality business. Has to look good. What color is the grass supposed to be? Green. That's right, green. Nobody calls me and says, I have the prettiest brown yard in the neighborhood. That's not the call I get, okay? Out there. So we fertilize for color, such we get green color. Growth and recovery. We want grasses to grow. And if you've got a sports field or anything like that, you want them to recover and bounce back, okay? On those, and then replacing nutrients as they become unavailable, whether they've leached through or taken up and you've harvested them off with bagging or what have you on us. So I want everybody to take a moment, think about your favorite plant, whatever it may be, okay? Some folks may be a rose, some folks may be a tomato, some folks may be a strawberry. Me, it's going to be grass, okay? But think about your favorite plant. You're going to go down to Home Depot, Lowe's, Superside, wherever, and you go buy fertilizer. That cost you anything? Okay, so there's an economic investment here, right? And you go put that fertilizer out, and what are you looking for out of that fertilizer with your favorite plant? You're looking for some kind of a plant response. If your favorite plant is a daylily, you put that fertilizer out, you expect that plant to uptake that nutrient, assimilate that nutrient into the plant, and then wind up giving you a pretty flower, correct? If your favorite plant is a strawberry, you want uptake, assimilation, and then making these nice tasty little red berries, right? So you're looking for uptake, assimilation, and some kind of a plant response. Same thing in turf. I want uptake, I want assimilation into the plant, I want it making rhizomes, I want it making stolons, I want it making shoots, I want it making new roots, I want canopy density, those kinds of things, and I want green color. So whether your favorite plant is, Bermuda grass, zoysia grass, or whether your favorite plant's a tomato, or whether it's, an ear of corn off of your heirloom corn in your or in your garden, same kind of concept, right? You're looking for some kind of uptake, assimilation, and a plant response on those. So that's what we're looking for with our fertilizer. So our roots have got to be active, right? Right now here in the month of July, our warm season grasses roots are active. We can get uptake, we can get assimilation, and we can get a plant response, whether it's Bermuda grass, zoysia grass, centipede grass, St. Augustine grass. We can get those right now. We can grow grass. Part of that is soil chemistry, so getting our soil chemistry right. Y'all heard about liming and pH? That's all soil chemistry. You shuck that down to the cob, what that says is if we get our soil pH correctly, uptake of those nutrients are more efficient, which means assimilation is more efficient, which means we get a better plant response, correct? So we got to get our pH correct out there. For most of our soils in the state of Georgia, because of the aluminum in them and the parent material, our soils tend to be a little on the acidic side. So we're going to add lime to them to raise the soil pH, okay? So more often than not, our soils, there's a few cases down around the coast. Coweta County is not at the coast, okay? So down around the coast, we have some others where our pHs are actually fairly high and we got to bring them down a little bit. But for most of the state of Georgia, we need to raise our soil pHs. So lime is one way to do it. It's slowly soluble. When I say slowly soluble, if you go out and lime your lawn, it's going to take about 3 to 4 months to adjust your soil pH, your soil chemistry, okay? So let's do the math on this one. Here it is July, right? We got a Bermuda grass lawn, warm season species. We go out and put lime down right now. Give me 3 months from now, it's when? August, September, October. Soil temperatures are cooling, nighttime temperatures are cooling, daytime temperatures are cooling, and are our days getting shorter or longer? Really? Last time I checked, every one of them's got 24 hours in them. The photo period's getting less, but the days are the same length, right? Somebody's sitting back there going, what a jackass. On the thing. So right now, can we lime? Sure. But it's really not the best time for our warm season grasses. Is it going to hurt anything? No. But we're liming at the point where by the time it really adjusts that soil pH and affects anything, the grass is starting to shut down. The environmental cues are causing that plant to start to shut down. So when's the best time to lime for warm season grasses? Where's that? February, January, February, right? So you take February, add 3 months. April, or March, April, May. Temperatures are coming up. Days getting longer or shorter? Good job on the thing. Photo period's getting longer. Days stay the same on the thing. And on it. So we're pointing point where the grass is starting to grow. Environmental conditions are favorable. It's getting those cues. So that's a better time. Again, can we do it now? Sure. But taking your soil samples, we got bags up here, getting those done in say December, January, getting the results back, and then being ready to get that lime out in say January, February for our warm season grasses is right. Now let's go back to our tall fescue lawns, because we have tall fescue lawns in Coweta County. July 8th, today. And let's pretty much figure today is over. Nobody's going to run home from here and go pull soil samples, are they? So tomorrow, the 9th. Add 3 months to that, we're into October. Is that a good time for tall fescue to be fertilized and be useful? So those of you that have tall fescue lawns, is now a good time to possibly pull soil samples and get your lime out according to recommendations? It is. Okay, very good on some of that. And I'm going to speed up a little bit based on time with things. Fertility programs, we're going to fertilize a little bit out there. New grasses, so new lawns, a 1-2-3 type of ratio of 5, 10, 15. For maintenance purposes out there, something other like, I like the 16-4-8 or thereabouts kind of analysis for many of our warm season grasses. Centipede grass is the exception. So Bermuda grass, zoysia grass, St. Augustine grass. Right now, fertilize. It's a good time to fertilize. If you're looking for an analysis, 16-4-8 is a good place to be. Somebody's going to raise their hand and go, I went down to Home Depot, they don't have it. No surprise. Something similar or close to that, if you can find it. That 4-1-2 type of ratio, very close to that. Or you can go down to Supersod or one of your commercial lawn care. Is there a Ewing, or not a Ewing, but a Site One or Spectrum or whatnot that's nearby? You know, that is for commercial lawn care operators. But you have green money too, right? They will sell to the general public. You show up, they will let you buy fertilizer. They will let you buy many pesticides. If it's a restricted use pesticide, you don't have a license, they can't sell it to you. But as far as goes a fertilizer does, they'll sell that to you just like they will your landscaper, okay? Out there. So how many hours a day do you like to breathe oxygen? Okay? I'm just going to give you one choice. Okay? 24. Roots are no different. Okay? So to aerate or not to aerate, and this is one of my favorite pictures that I've ever taken. Okay? So this was off of a golf course fairway in Central Florida. That black stuff that's right in here, I know it looks like soil, but it ain't. It stunk. It was hard. It was compacted. And there was not a whole lot. These were actually spoils of whenever they're kind of digging out and building I-75 down through Central Florida. The golf course superintendent had come in and actually done a really good job of some deep tine aerification. So they opened it up, and beforehand, roots are up here, punched that hole. Look at all those roots. They chased right down that oxygen channel. We opened it up, they went straight down. Remember what I said earlier about our mowing heights and the relationship we have with mowing heights and roots? The more soil volume we have to pull water and nutrients out of, the better our plants are going to be. So to aerate or not aerate, anything I can open a hole in a channel and get roots down deeper, I'm going to make more efficient use of water and nutrients that I'm applying and paying for, okay? So if I have a choice, I'm going to punch a hole, I'm going to open it up, get that void such that those roots can chase that oxygen right down into it. Warm season grasses, good time of year right now to go out and core aerate, okay? Or hire somebody to do it. Anybody in here that's run a core aerator before? No, that is a piece of equipment that will work you before you work it, okay? It's not easy. It's worth wind up paying someone, and that's a commercial guy right there to do it. So 3 to 4 inch deep, deeper the better. Half inch, 5/8 inch tines on an average home lawn is kind of where you want to do. When I know I got late April to mid-May up there, that's kind of when the first one could happen. But right now here in the middle of summer, Bermuda grass, zoysia grass, centipede grass, St. Augustine grass, perfect time to core aerate, okay? Now's a good time to do that. What I don't have up there is many times folks will ask me, well, do I fertilize before or after? To which I generally reply, I don't care. Either way is fine on it. So if you fertilize, water it in, and then core aerate, you've moved those nutrients into the soil. If you want to core aerate, collect your cores, and then fertilize such that you don't pick that fertilizer back up, knock yourself out. That's fine too, okay? Either way, we kind of open those channels, we get that grass growing, we get those roots growing and moving on. Either out there now or to become, this is one that I've been beating my head against the wall for the last 4 or 5 years. Doveweed, okay? Naked stem dewflower, Mordanium. Okay, this is a nasty little weed. It's an annual. It's a grassy-like weed. It's in the spiderwort family. It germinates a little bit later in the spring. And that's part of the problem we have with it. So our pre-emergence herbicides will go out in the spring. We're starting to lose a little, the wrong word is probably efficacy on it, but it's not quite, or potency rather, but we're generally not as potent by the time this starts to germinate. So we don't have as much of the active ingredient really right there in the soil when this starts to germinate out there. And if you don't catch it early, this thing is really hard to control. It's a very waxy leaf to it, so getting a herbicide to stick to it. The other is can you see the leaf orientation here too? It's not quite as bad as wild garlic that picks up and it's a big old waxy thing and water droplet hits it and just runs straight down because gravity works in the state of Georgia, right? On it. This one's very similar, a little bit more of a upright leaf orientation, so getting anything to stick, plus it's very waxy, and it wants to wind up repelling anything that hits. So post-emergence herbicides don't work on this real well. Have some activity, but you better get them early. And where we are right now on the 1st of July, this hasn't really started to mat out yet. We get another rainfall event or two here about mid-July, and this thing's going to mat out, and it's going to get real matty in nature. And when it does, game over. There's really nothing for you to do on it. I've got no selective options for it. And even hitting it with Roundup at that time of year, which is non-selective, we're going to get our grass that's kind of down below it and that kind of thing too. Even Roundup has a little trouble once this thing starts to mat out. You start seeing blue flowers on it, it's almost too late. You just don't have a whole lot of options on the thing. So with it. Okay? Some work that was done looking at 3-way herbicides, things that contain 2,4-D, MCPA or MCPP, and dicamba. We can catch this if you catch it early. So whenever it's kind of that 2 to 3 leaf stage, you kind of catch it then. 2 applications about 10 to 14 days apart. We can do a fairly decent job of controlling this one, but you got to get it early. You let it start to kind of get mature. Landscapers have a hard time with it. Homeowners have a hard time with it. But this is one we're seeing increasing in population. I get more phone calls about it every year on that one. Diseases, we've already talked a little bit about those. And if anybody's got to go, I apologize if I'm long or whatnot. Hope you're not going to offend me if you need to go. But a lot of times we'll talk about the disease triangle. I like to think of it as the disease pyramid. One, a susceptible host, that's your grass that can be infected. Virulent pathogen, that's your fungus that can do the work. the right environment for this pathogen to infect the susceptible host. And I've already mentioned to you earlier that most of our fungal pathogens need about 12 hours of free moisture. So time. Now, the grass we have in our lawn is the grass we have in our lawn, right? We can't change that too much. The spores that are there that are with the disease, they're in the environment. They're there. So the virulent pathogen is always going to be there. The favorable environment comes and goes, and we're likely to get it. So the one aspect of this triangle we can actually manage is the time factor. How long that grass stays wet. Remember we gave our example earlier about watering when you get home at 6 o'clock and what time the next morning before the dew burns off? You know, so we can kind of manage when we actually start to irrigate and the amount of time that we have a favorable environment for a virulent pathogen of a susceptible host to get infection on things. So watering early in the morning, late at night, much helps out tremendously with some of that. Things we're going to be seeing right now, dollar spot is one. We get a little bit more rain or whatnot, and I know that's forecast, some hit and miss showers here in the next few minutes. Dollar spot's one we've already seen a little bit on Bermuda and zoysia grass. So on it. Nice little lesions on our leaf blades right here. Zoysia grass, very susceptible to it. Bermuda grass, very susceptible to it. I tend not to see as much dollar spot on St. Augustine and centipede. It can happen, but not as much typically. This time of year, do I get too excited about dollar spot on Bermuda grass or zoysia grass? Not too much. Reason for that is it's going to stay warm. The grass is going to grow through it. Many times if I see dollar spot on Bermuda grass this time of year, it's a little bit of an indication of maybe being malnourished. So my first application or first thought is, hey, why don't you put about a half a pound of nitrogen per 1,000 square foot? Let's fertilize and drive that grass a little bit, not a fungicide, but let's put a little fertility out there. Cause that grass to grow, and many times we'll wind up kind of growing through the disease on it. There's some work right now being done. Is it truly the disease or we triggering something other in the plant and making it a little bit more hardy or resistant to it at the time? But this time of year, dollar spot, not uncommon. And I'm probably reaching for a bag of fertilizer before I'm looking for a fungicide. Okay? On that one. Little information, you got the handouts, again for the sake of time. Oh, so pathologists, you got to love them too. They name diseases as they see them. Okay? Case in point, if you look at the background of my slide, that's the old Lakewood Amphitheater there outside the airport. Do y'all see the patches there? That's on a common Bermuda grass lawn at Lakewood Amphitheater. Would y'all say that is a large patch? It's about 8-10 foot in diameter. That one up there is probably about 20 foot in diameter. That's a large patch. So the name of that disease, as the pathologist would name it, is large patch. That's right. Oh no. Okay. There's another one we will see during spring green up, typically on Bermuda grass. It's a dead spot and occurs in the spring. So what's the name of that disease?
Springtime dead spot.
Spring dead spot. That's right. That's right. So some of you may be going, okay, so what's the thing on dollar spot? Well, it starts off about the size of an old silver dollar. So that's where those are, as they come off about the size of a silver dollar on those. That's where that name comes from on those. Dr. Martinez has done a really good job with a couple of publications on large patch, Rhizoctonia, large patch and brown patch. If it's on tall fescue, it's not so large, but the leaf tissue turns brown, so it is then now, instead of large patch, it is brown patch. That's right. So brown patch on cool seasons, large patch on warm seasons on it. And any of you engineers out here that kind of thinking, hey, he hadn't picked on me yet, some of you are lumpers and splitters on some of that. But same fungal organism here on it, warm season, cool seasons, good publication to look at on it. And that's an example right there on some zoysia grass. So December, you see the large patch on my zoysia grass. April, still what it is and what it's doing coming out of dormancy. So if you have sick grass going into the fall of the year and into the winter as it's going dormant, it's going to wake up sick and slow growth, okay? On it, whoops, come back here. So this is a new slide, backwards, there we go. Fungicides, what do fungicides do? They arrest disease and they protect the plant. That's what fungicides do, okay? They will arrest disease, stop it from getting any worse, and they will protect the plant. Okay? What fungicides do not do, they don't control disease indefinitely. Okay? I'll have homeowners call and say, well, I put out a fungicide. Okay, when'd you put that out? March. Okay. Did you get sick when you were 10? Yeah. Did you get sick again when you were 15? Yeah. Did you take an antibiotic? Yeah. Well, why isn't that working? Same kind of thing. So it doesn't happen indefinitely. Our fungicides, they kind of have a phase to them. They don't control all phases of the pathogen. They don't control all phases of the fungus. If it's a resting spore or an overwintering spore, many of these fungicides don't test those or touch those. So when environmental conditions become favorable, that spore can germinate. It can then get and infect the grass, right? Or the other plant on the thing. So they don't control all phases of the pathogen out there. Some expectations when it comes to fungicides, because again, I get this a good little bit. It's not one and done. If I put out a fungicide, okay, when did you put it out? April. Okay. At best, our fungicides have about 28-day residual to them. At best. And many of them we have nowadays have kind of gone that direction. Some of our old ones were anywhere from 10 to 17 days was as good as we got. But many of them now that we've got out there, 28 days. So if you got 28, 35, 42 consecutive days of a favorable environment, then you may need a second application, right? On some of these. Curative and preventative, so some will arrest the disease, that's curative, and some are prophylactic that will end up protecting the plant on it. Back to where we are. So we got to know what we're putting out there, okay? And they will move in the plant, acropedal, but for the sake of time, we'll go into that a little bit later. I want to get past this. Let's just go ahead and spoil it here. This was fall armyworms, a matter in about 12 days on a Bermuda grass lawn a few years ago. I bring this up because last year was a bad fall armyworm year. And I had folks all over the place calling about those. Stephanie, did you have anybody call you about fall armyworms in 2024 on the thing? So they're out there. Beautiful little creatures, aren't they? On those. There's Mama. Mama ain't the problem. It's Junior. Okay? Junior's the problem. He's the one that feeds. So it feeds on the grass, that's the problem. But you see Mama flying around, she lays the eggs wind up hatching, the hatch winds up producing caterpillars. The caterpillars feed on the grass, then they wind up molting, they wind up and start the whole life cycle over again, okay? So where do they come from? Mama, let's go back here, Mama, turns out she can't overwinter in Georgia. It's too cold here, okay? Even though the USDA wound up changing our hardiness zones for plants, turns out it's still too cold for Mama. She can't overwinter here. So where do the adults come from that leave the little eggs out there? There's really kind of two sources. They come from Central America, the Caribbean, or the northern part of South America. How do they get here? Wind currents are part of it. The other is these things right here. Okay? Tropical depressions, tropical storms. Many times in the past, we've certainly looked at more of the Caribbean and what's coming off of off of northern America, southern America, north coast of South America. I'll get it out in a minute on it, or out of the Caribbean, because this is the area where the adults will kind of overwinter and persist. So these systems will take off. But this is one end of May kind of caught my attention a little bit. Most of the time I don't look at the Pacific. But the way this one was coming in, and it was going to come right across Mexico, pick up a bunch of mamas. Wind currents came on, and we got a good bit of rain back out through the southern part of southeastern United States. And that was end of May of this year. Is that the first one that brings that first generation? I don't know. I really don't. But this one caught my attention this year on it. Let's see. Then we had another A, but that one was way off in the Atlantic, never made rainfall. Then we had Barry. This one I didn't sweat too much, because if you looked at where Barry was, kind of formed out here in the Gulf and then cut across Florida. So really for us in Georgia didn't hit us too much. So the opportunity to bring an awful lot there, probably not, but that was the end of June, so here just a few weeks ago. And then we had this one here just this past weekend, right? Chantal. So whenever I went back to grad school to study grass, never did I think I'd start looking at hurricanes on the same level that I do now, or tropical depressions. But you go through a couple of years of of fall armyworms like what we had last year, and you start paying attention to stuff you didn't pay attention to before on those. So right now, would I say we're looking at a particularly rough year for fall armyworms? My crystal ball is no better than yours is, but unless that Alvin that came up out of the Pacific, right now we haven't had an awful lot bring us too many adults such that populations start growing. Now, that could change real quick, right? But right now, if it started back in May, 1st of June, we'd probably be 2 or 3 generations in and populations would be starting to increase. And that's what we saw last year on things, okay? Going forward, and this is some work out of University of Tennessee. Dr. Pritchard's former advisor, Jim Brosnan, Dr. Brosnan, did some of this work with his colleagues. And Ben can probably talk to it better than I can. But annual bluegrass, is that ever somebody's problem in the spring of the year, winter and spring? Okay, so now I'm shifting gears a little bit, getting you to think about what's going to be happening towards the end of summer. Not what we've been doing, but what's at the end of summer. Okay, so we start getting into, if I remember correctly, week 36, 37, 38, somewhere right in there is middle to latter part of August, if I remember correctly on that one. So our pre-emergence herbicides work there. As we start to move past, we've got to be looking at blends of pre-emergence and post-emergent herbicides for some of our warm season lawns on those. So that to be said is, as we start to move into middle part of August, for annual bluegrass control, and I know it's hard to shift gears and get your mind to think, hey, this is something I'm doing now so it looks good in, say, March, April, and May. But that's when we kind of need to start looking at some of that on some of those. Okay? Again, we start moving forward a little bit, things to anticipate. You asked me earlier about Bermuda grass. As we start to move into September, we start seeing far more leaf spot on Bermuda grass. This is very normal. This is a response to environmental conditions. Nighttime temperatures start to change. They start to decline. The other is do our days getting longer or shorter? They're the same. The photo period's getting less. The Bermuda grass isn't growing as aggressively because it's not growing as aggressively. It's more susceptible to some of these leaf spot diseases. So it's not uncommon to see these September and October as that plant is naturally shutting down and getting ready to go into dormancy. So can it be visually unattractive? It can. Is it something other that typically takes Bermuda grass to the ground? Generally not. On those, can you treat it and control it? You can. Is it worth it? I'd say that's kind of up to you sometimes on these things, on them. If you're on a golf course or sports field where the expectations are extremely high, if you're that homeowner that just, we're going to take it right up to dormancy and have it look good all the way, then this is something other out there on it. But very normal for leaf spot in the spring, or excuse me, in the fall of the year. Things not to do. Okay? Don't listen to the ad campaigns. Be better agronomists, be better horticulturalists than what they are on commercials. Okay? Warm season grasses, we don't need to be feeding those things in September and October. You stick the name winterizer on there, folks say, I got to put this out for winter. Not on warm season grasses, you don't. That grass is responding to environmental cues. It's starting to shut down. Is the root system active? If the root system isn't active, are we getting uptake? Are we getting assimilation? Are we getting a favorable plant response? So why do we need to put fertilizer out, especially these here? That's a 32-0-10. There's a little bit of slug of nitrogen in that thing, right? If anything, you might need a little bit of phosphorus or potassium. It's possible for roots and winter hardiness. I don't need the nitrogen that time of year. Okay? Now my tall fescue, my cool season folks in the room, is that a good one for that? Yeah, would be. So in this room, now if I was giving this talk in Savannah, I better have nobody telling me they have tall fescue. But for tall fescue, this is something that you'd be thinking about then. With that, thank you. I apologize for a little long, but our Southeastern Turf Conference down in Tifton will be May the 5th. Sod Producers Field Day down in Perry on November the 6th. With that, our county agents do great jobs, and check with them as they got new programs coming on and that kind of thing. I'm happy to take questions, and you first because you raised your hand. Nutsedge, yes sir? What grass is it in? Bermuda grass. So the question is control Bermuda grass, control nut sedge, and it's truly a sedge, not a grass, but you know, you can accuse me of being a lumper or a splitter. I'll take the arrows. Nut sedge in Bermuda grass. This time of year you can treat it. The easiest thing out there is Sedgehammer or any halosulfuron containing program. Sedgehammer is a good one. It's nice and safe. You're going to get about 6 weeks out of control out of it. Okay? Now, here's the secret to that chemistry of herbicides. They're slow. So you spray them today. You come back in about 4 or 5 days and you go, I didn't do anything. You're going to come back in about 7 to 10 days and go say, where is it? Where'd it go? It just kind of disappears on its own a little bit. And then here in about 6 weeks, it starts putting shoots back up on the thing. So you've got to retreat and be back on top of it. But Sedgehammer is an option. Another option is Certainty. That one gets you about 8 weeks of control. It's still in the same family, but it does the same kind of thing. At first, you're like, I'm not getting a whole lot of activity out of it. There's a few other things out there like Dismiss. I'm not a big fan of those because of the injury we tend to see on the Bermuda grass, especially if you're spot treating it. So the question is, where can you find those? The Sedgehammer, and the reason I like that one is one that they still will sell those in those little 0.9 gram blister packs. So you put 0.9 grams in a gallon of water and you can spot spray with it. And a lot of times on that's your commercial lawn care outlets. So the Site Ones, the Ewings, they probably have it over there at that. I'm sorry? Yeah, your seed and feed stores. I've seen the feed and seed stores with the little Sedgehammer. And there's another one, I'm drawing a blank on the name, the commercial name, but it's got halosulfuron on it. Same thing, it's a little single use, 1 gallon. Do that, just do spot spray on it. And that's what I like for homeowners, is something like that they can do. Otherwise, you're buying in large quantities. It's hard to measure out, and you're also spending $200 a gallon for it, kind of thing. So, Sedgehammer, Sedgehammer. Like I said, there is another one out there. I hate to be, but there is another one. I'm drawing a blank on the name, but on it. Yes, ma'am.
I have to show you because I don't know what it's called.
Okay.
So I took a picture. So there's this and that. What is that called?
The cockleburs?
I don't know.
No, it's not Cuckleburs.
I don't know what it is.
It looks like you've got, it's either an annual sedge or Kalinga.
Is there a fix?
Is there a fix for annual sedge or Kalinga? Same, Bermuda grass is always a grass? Same thing as I just told him. It's in the same, that plant is in the same family as his nut sedge.
So it won't hurt. Okay.
So same thing there. Hold on, got a lady in the back, and I'll come to you. Yes, ma'am.
How do deer and grass relate to one another?
How do deer and grass relate to one another?
And electric fences?
If I were to stay in my lane right there, I'd say I'm not a wildlife biologist. I don't see the deer eat a lot of lawn grasses. I have seen them eat, but many landscapes are certainly in. They've eaten all of my daylilies, on the things. And as far as it goes with electric fences, best I've seen with those, they work as a pretty good deterrent, but eventually they get bold enough to wind up jumping into some of those things. Stephanie may have better resources and answers on deer control than I do. The other simple answer is a 30-06. Yes, ma'am.
If we had cockleburs and someone told me Turfgrass, is that, I have pictures.
Okay, I doubt you have Cuckleburs. Cuckleburs is a weed, but it gets up about this tall.
They got the little burrs in them.
You're probably thinking lawn burrweed.
Yes.
Is this one that you step on and it'll make you wind up
Yeah.
hot foot across your lawn? That's probably lawn burrweed, not Cucklebur. Okay, that is a winter annual broadleaf weed. Okay, and at this time that weed's probably died off and gone. If it's sitting around, hanging around now, it's on its way out because it doesn't like heat. So but by and large, that weed's typically gone by now on it. But that is if we're talking lawn burrweed, that's a winter annual broadleaf weed. Start to germinate in say October, November. And then you want to really kind of control it in say December, January, February. Okay? Now when it starts to flower, you got to think about what weeds are. They're opportunistic plants. So it's looking for a way to disseminate its seed. And that little burr is one way of sticking into your foot or a dog's pad or whatever and then spread. Okay? So when it goes to flower, it sets that burr as a distribution mechanism. So if we can control that weed before it goes to flower, we have a chance of controlling that burr. So trying to control it in say December, January, or February is the time to do that one with it.
Mr. Waltz, let's take, there you go, raise your hand higher.
You
Let's
see
take
them?
that.
They're-
Yeah, I do. Okay. Sedge. That's an annual sedge, just like the lady next to you. So whose question am I taking?
Last question, right there.
Yes, ma'am.
Will you talk about grubs and
Well,
grass and
do I have to?
are Japanese beetles, are the grubs for Japanese beetles in our grass?
So the question is, talk about grubs, and are the beetles for Japanese beetles the grubs in our grass? Yes, they are on those. Generally, we don't see them as much of a problem here in the southeast as you do in the Midwest. Not that they can't be. And I've already seen one tall fescue one this year that I just got pictures of it, and I told the landscaper, I said, go get your handful and see if it pulls up. I suspect it will with it.
I got a lot.
So if you got grubs, now would be the time to actually treat them. Now would be the time to go after them. The tenets of toxicology are the poison is in the dose. So if I can get a small amount down to control a small insect, I'm more effective. Otherwise, I got to put out a lot of insecticide to kill a large bug. So right now, while they're small, is the time to go after them on the thing. So it's possible that you could, now would be the time to go after grubs.
All right.
Okay.
Let's give a big
So-
round of applause
There we go.
for exactly presentation. That program used to be called All You Ever Wanted to Know About Turfgrass and Was Afraid to Ask.